Have you ever noticed that some people simply attract others effortlessly? They walk into a room and somehow all the attention is on them. They are not necessarily the prettiest, the richest, or the loudest, but there's something about them, something invisible but powerful. And the most curious thing? They are not trying to seduce. They simply do it without seeming like they are. Now think about the opposite, that person who tries too hard, who uses memorized phrases, who exaggerates their self-confidence, or tries so hard to impress that they end up being ignored. Have you ever seen this happen? It is almost as if there is a natural law of seduction, where those who try too hard push away, and those who know exactly how to position themselves attract. This is the first reality check. Real seduction is not about forcing, but about pulling. It is about creating a gravitational field around you without asking for attention. But how does it work? There is a pattern, a code, and it has always been followed by the greatest seducers in history, from Cleopatra to Casanova, from the Marquise de Sade to Marilyn Monroe. The problem is that almost everything you've been told about seduction is wrong. Society sells the idea that it's enough to be handsome, rich, or have a good conversation. But if that were all, why are so many attractive or successful people uninteresting and forgettable? Why do some ordinary people, without any obvious attributes, become addictive to those who know them? The brutal truth is that seduction has nothing to do with pretty words or status. It has to do with presence, mystery, and emotional control. It's a psychological game that starts before the first word. And if you don't understand this game, you're the pawn being moved in it. Now, if you really want to understand what separates the masters from the amateurs, then get ready. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the secrets that true seducers never reveal. But first, you need to understand the biggest mistake that destroys any chance of seduction, and that 99% of people make without realizing it. Believing that seduction is about looks, status, or ready-made phrases is like trying to light a fire by throwing water on it. It works to fool the naive. But in the real world, people don't fall in love with pretty faces or fat wallets. They fall in love with sensations. Desire is not born of logic, but of emotion. If it were a rational question, no one would be attracted to someone who doesn't fit their list of requirements. But it happens all the time. The man who says he only likes a certain type of woman ends up obsessed with one who completely deviates from the norm. The woman who claims she wants a secure and stable partner ends up attracted to the mysterious one who disappears without explanation. That's because seduction doesn't follow the obvious rules we've been taught. It's chaotic, irrational, psychological. And this is where the first fatal mistake comes in: trying too hard. Have you ever noticed how the most attractive people, the ones who really capture our attention, never seem to be trying? There's a paradox in this. When someone tries hard to impress, the invisible message they send is, "I need your approval." And needing someone's approval kills desire instantly. The secret of great seducers has always been the same: presence, mystery, and emotional control. Cleopatra, for example, was not the most beautiful woman of her time, but she mastered the psychological game like no one else. She didn't chase. She created an atmosphere in which men felt they needed to conquer her. Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, two of the most powerful men in Rome, risked everything for her. But it was Cleopatra who controlled the game. This happens because seduction is not about being desirable. It's about making the other person feel like they have something to conquer. And that's exactly where 99% of people fail. They try to impress. They talk too much. They exaggerate their gestures, their tone of voice, the stories they tell. Deep down, they are desperate for validation. And nothing is less seductive than someone who needs to be accepted. Now let's talk about the root of this problem: self-absorption. Most people spend their entire lives stuck inside their own heads, thinking about what they're going to say, how they're going to be perceived, how they can seem more interesting. The problem is that this kills connection. Imagine a date where the person only talks about themselves without ever showing genuine curiosity about you. Within minutes, boredom sets in. Because human beings are not attracted to others. They are attracted by what they feel about themselves when they're with someone else. The masters of seduction understood this centuries ago. Casanova, for example, was a legendary seducer, but his secret wasn't in his looks or wealth. It was in his ability to make women feel unique. He listened, he paid attention, he asked the right questions and responded intensely to what he heard. And this proves a brutal point. Seduction doesn't start with you, it starts with the other person. Those who understand this stop trying to be the center of attention and start doing something much more powerful, observing, analyzing, and creating a deep emotional experience in the other person. Those who master this art do not need to chase after it. They do not need to impress, because desire arises spontaneously. Now, if seduction is not an effort or appearance, then where is it? What exactly makes someone become magnetic without trying? The answer lies in an invisible pattern followed by the greatest seducers in history. A secret code that few understand, but that separates the masters from the amateurs. And that is exactly what I'm going to reveal to you now. Real seduction doesn't happen on the surface. It operates in invisible layers, long before the first word is spoken. True masters understand that attraction doesn't arise from logic, but from emotional chaos. When someone makes you feel something unexpected, be it fascination, mystery, or challenge, your brain activates a primitive mechanism, the desire for the unknown. Now, let's get to the point that no one tells you. There is a huge difference between natural attraction and forced attraction. Those who have to make an effort to get attention are doomed to be forgotten. But those who master the invisible game of seduction make others want to be around them without even understanding why. And the secret behind this lies in 3 fundamental rules. The first is brutal. True seducers are not predictable. Our brains get addicted to what they can't predict. Think about it. Why are we attracted to people who sometimes show interest and sometimes seem distant? Why can intense flirting be more exciting than a lukewarm relationship? The answer lies in the concept of intermittent reward, a psychological principle studied by B.F. Skinner, one of the greatest researchers of human behavior. Skinner discovered that the brain releases more dopamine when the reward comes unexpectedly. This explains why casinos are addictive, why checking messages on your cell phone becomes compulsive, and why some people simply won't leave your mind. Unpredictability makes the brain want more. Now, apply this to seduction. If you always respond quickly, are always available, always say yes, you become predictable. But if you create moments of intensity and then subtly withdraw, something curious happens, desire increases. Because the other person begins to see you as an enigma to be deciphered. This brings us to the second rule. True seducers make the other person invest. Here's the brutal truth. Those who invest get attached, not the other way around. This is a common mistake. Most people think they need to give everything to win someone over. Give attention, give gifts, give compliments. But psychologically, attachment works the opposite way. When we invest in something, we start to value it more. This has been proven in experiments like the IKEA effect, where researchers discovered that people value a piece of furniture more when they assemble it themselves. Effort creates connection. Now, translating this into seduction, if you do everything for the other person, without them having to invest in the interaction, you lose value. But when you make the other person make an effort, whether to gain your attention, to keep the conversation going, or to win a piece of your time, they become much more attached. The secret? Create small psychological barriers. Don't give everything away for free. Create the feeling that being with you is a rare experience and not a guarantee. And this brings us to the third rule. Seduction is about how you make the other person feel. This is where 99% of people fail. They think they need to be interesting, that they need to speak well, tell incredible stories, have something extra to offer. But the truth is that no one is attracted to another person. They are attracted by what they feel about themselves in the presence of another person. This is the ultimate key to seduction. The greatest seducers in history mastered this perfectly. Casanova, for example, did not seduce by telling stirring stories about himself. He seduced by creating emotional experiences for the other person. He asked questions, he listened intensely, he reacted in a calculated way, and above all, he created an environment where the other person felt special, unique, different. The mistake amateurs make? Focusing on themselves, talking too much, trying to impress. But true seducers make the other person feel seen, desired, intrigued. And here comes the final trick. Attraction is not asked for. It is imposed. You will never see a great seducer trying to convince someone to like him. You will never see a master of seduction desperate for attention, because they know that real attraction comes from the absence of need. Think of the icons of magnetism that have marked history. James Dean, for example, his gaze, his posture, his aura. He didn't talk much. He didn't try to please, but he created a gravitational field where people felt the need to get closer. This is the invisible game of seduction. You don't force anything. You create a vacuum that naturally attracts others. And now that you understand this code, the big question arises: how do you maintain this magnetism in the long term? How do you make someone not only desire you, but become obsessed with your presence? This is the part that separates ordinary seducers from true masters. Attracting someone is easy. The real challenge is making yourself unforgettable. Many people can spark initial interest, but few know how to keep someone thinking about them all the time. What separates a simple flirtation from an addictive connection? What makes someone miss you even without a logical reason? The answer lies in a brutal psychological principle: emotional uncertainty. Our brains don't value what is guaranteed. They crave what is unstable, unpredictable, and emotionally intense. When something is predictable, it becomes boring. But when there is a slight sense of uncertainty, a wavering between deep connection and a slight withdrawal, desire multiplies. This is exactly what the greatest seducers in history have always mastered. They created unique emotional experiences, but they never gave everything at once. They alternated between intimacy and distance, between moments of undivided attention and subtle disappearances, and this created an addictive effect. Think about the relationships that have left the biggest mark on you. Almost always, there was an element of unpredictability. What makes someone lose interest in a partner so quickly? Emotional routine. When we know exactly what to expect, the excitement disappears. But when there is surprise, when there are unexpected moments that break the pattern, our mind enters a state of excitement. And that is the first secret. You need to create a sense of mystery and continuous renewal. That means being unpredictable in the way you interact, in what you share, in the way you react. Never being completely decipherable. Because the human brain gets addicted to what it doesn't fully understand. Now, there is something even more powerful than unpredictability. Something that creates a deep and emotionally charged bond between two people. The second secret is active listening and total presence. In a world where everyone is distracted, those who really pay attention become irresistible. Have you ever noticed how some people make you feel like you are the only person in the world when they talk to you? How the way they look, react, and absorb every word makes you feel like you are truly understood? This is extremely rare, because most people are stuck inside their own heads, waiting for their turn to speak, thinking about what to say next. But true seducers make the other person feel seen, heard, and desired in a way that no one else does. Casanova was a master at this. He made women feel like they were the only person in the room. He didn't get distracted, he didn't interrupt, he didn't look away. And this intensity created an emotional connection so strong that it made them want more. But there's one last piece to this puzzle. Even after you've created desire, even after you've established an intense connection, there's still a risk: emotional burnout. Many relationships start out explosive and then lose their charm. And this happens because people stop playing the psychological game. If you want to keep someone hooked on your presence, you need to master what we call re-enchantment. This means never letting the relationship become monotonous, creating unexpected moments, emotional surprises, new experiences that trigger the same level of excitement as at the beginning. Cleopatra was a master at this. She always reinvented her image, always created new experiences, always surprised. She never allowed her lovers to fall into the absolute security of having her forever. And that is what makes someone unforgettable. Because in the end, seduction is not about who you are. It is about how you make others feel. And true masters of seduction are not remembered for what they say, but for the emotional chaos they leave behind. Seduction is not about following obvious rules. It's not about looks, status, or rehearsed phrases. It's about sensations, about understanding what activates human desire on a deep level. You've seen that the biggest mistake people make is trying too hard. Those who try hard to be accepted have already lost. Because true seducers don't ask for attention, they attract it naturally. You've learned the invisible code of seduction, the game of unpredictability, tension, and scarcity. You've understood that those who invest get attached, and that the power is not in impressing, but in making the other person feel something intense. And now comes the big question: what are you going to do with this knowledge? Because, in the end, there are only two types of people. Those who are constantly being thrown into the social game without understanding the rules, and those who learn how to move the pieces. Most people don't realize it, but the social game is happening all the time. You can ignore it and continue to be just another guy, or you can use it to your advantage and become someone who makes an impression, who attracts, who dominates your own narrative. Now tell me, have you noticed this game happening in your life? If so, comment power below. Let's see how many people really understood this message. And if you want to learn more about this, in the next video I'll reveal a deadly mistake that destroys any chance of attraction, and that 99% of people make without realizing it. If you want to know, subscribe now so you don't miss it. In the end, seduction is not about pretty words. It's about how you make others feel, and those who master this will never go unnoticed again.